tonight's presentation, Recycling Myth versus Reality. I'm Sherry Latage, co-founder of Greener Glenview, along with Mary Monday in blue at the back of the room there. And show of hands, how many of you heard about this program through the library? Good job, Michael White. How many of you heard about it or read about it in Patch? Okay, no point to boosting things, I guess, on Patch. And how many of you heard about the program through the Greener Glenview Bulletin? Okay, well, for those of you who don't yet receive the Greener Glenview Bulletin, we publish it monthly. It's the only communication generally that you get only once a month unless we want to remind you of something like this program. And if you're not currently a reader of our bulletin, you can sign up at the back of the room, where we also have information about the composting, the free community drop-off food scrap composting program. If you're interested, you can still register for that. It's going to run through January. So we are pleased to bring you tonight's panel of experts. There is much confusion and cynicism about recycling. We trust our panelists will help dispel both. They will describe the current state of affairs regarding recycling in Glenview and our region, recent state legislative initiatives, how recyclables are processed, and operational challenges. And there will be lots of time to ask questions. Among our goals tonight is to help us all learn to recycle properly and to increase the amount of materials getting recycled. We hope that the knowledge you gain tonight will be shared with your friends and family. Here's how the evening will go. Our first two speakers from SWANCC, Christina and Teresa, will present. We will take a short break after Teresa speaks, after which Javier from Groot will speak. Following his presentation, all three speakers will be seated at the table up front and will take audience questions. Please hold your questions for the Q&A period. It is likely that many of the questions you have will be addressed during their presentations. We ask that you write your questions on the note cards, which will be collected during the break between Teresa and Javier. And if you have questions during Javier's presentation, that's fine. Just hold your hand up with your card and it will be collected. So let's get the show on the road.
You have to write the questions on a card?
Yeah.
It's not audience, hello, can we recycle?
Well, we'd like to have them, because many people have the same question. We'd like to have as many in advance so we can sort and avoid duplicates. But certainly at the end, that will be the case.
So can you put more than one question on a card?
Sure. Okay. So our first speaker is Christina Siebert. She's an expert in the development and implementation of solid waste and waste diversion plans and policy on behalf of local governments. She is the executive director of the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County, called SWANCC, an intergovernmental agency facilitating waste management operations, programs, and policies for its 23-member municipalities and 800,000 residents in Northern and Northwest Cook County. Christina has 25 years of experience in the solid waste and recycling arena, consulting to and serving some of the most environmentally progressive communities in the Chicago region and across the U.S., driving pragmatic and community-minded strategies. Please join me in welcoming Christina Siebert.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry, and good evening, everybody. How's my volume? Everybody hear me okay? All right. So Sherry already told you a little bit about who SWANCC is. We're 23 member communities gathered together in a municipal joint action agency, which in Illinois is a unit of local government that has certain powers to be able to coordinate waste and recycling operations for its members. We do not have taxing authority, but we do have revenue generating authority. So we are funded from our 23 member communities, and Glenview is one of them. We have about 800,000 residents, about 250,000 households that we represent. We have a two-part mission. The first is to provide long-term, cost-effective, and competitive waste disposal. For that, we have our transfer station, which Teresa will talk about some more, where all of the residential waste from our member communities is delivered and sent to a landfill that's under contract. And we have a long-term commitment from our members for that through 2031. We started that commitment in 1992, so it was a 40-year term that will be coming up at the end of in about 6 years. The second part of our mission is to divert volume and toxicity of waste. So we're looking at the recyclables in the stream, which we'll talk about a lot tonight, and I'm going to leave a lot more of that conversation to Teresa and Javier. And on the toxicity side, we're looking at things like household chemicals and electronics that have rare earth metals and various hazards in them, and medications and needles, all things that SWANCC has made part of its mission to provide opportunities for residents to more properly manage and divert from the waste stream so that we're recovering resources and making a safer disposal for the long term. How many of you are from Glenview? The majority. I imagine we have a few here from Des Plaines, maybe from Northbrook or Northfield and some of the other surrounding communities. And thank you for all being here. I do want to talk about Glenview specifically, but this is really not exclusive to Glenview when we look at your waste and recycling performance. Across the region, really, we're seeing communities are at a fairly flat level of disposal and a fairly flat amount of recycling. And when you look at recycling percentages, we've seen those coming down over the last 5 or 6 years. But that's true for Glenview, that's true for our SWANCC region as a whole. If we look across the state and across the nation, we're seeing the same thing happen. A lot of that is because manufacturers are looking at ways to make their products lighter, and they call that lightweighting. So your cardboard boxes are not as heavy as a cardboard box used to be. Your aluminum cans are lighter than they used to be. I think Javier will talk about that some more when we talk about how markets change for our recyclable materials. Those are all things that we try to divert from the stream. So when those get lighter, it doesn't mean we're diverting less. It just means that as a fraction of the total amount of weight that we're throwing away, that fraction has come down. So good practices here, very high level of recycling compared to other parts of the country. We are among some of the highest performing communities in the state, and I would say even in the country. We often hear about communities that are on the West Coast, like Seattle and San Francisco, hitting 70 or 80% recycling. There's some myth in that number and some magic in their math that doesn't compute that we won't get into. So SWANCC, and a lot of my role as the executive director, we do a lot to drive change within the management of materials, not just for our resident communities, but also for other communities across the state. We have the ability, because of our size and the number of residents that we represent, that we can work regionally and statewide to drive legislation to better divert material and ensure that there's access to diversion for everyone in the state. So we get involved in a lot of studies. Everybody at the state legislature kind of groans when there's a task force that's created, but yet they all like to develop these task forces to study things. And we've been part of those, looking at ways to advance recycling and to now work on our path towards more legislation around your traditional recyclables. But what we have been very successful at to this point is what we call extended producer responsibility legislation, basically making producers of products responsible for the end of life for that product. The first one that we did legislation for was electronics. So how many of you have brought an electronic item, a TV, a computer, a VCR to one of our drop-offs? Well, we're happy to have you there, and we hope that you keep coming, because you can't put them in the landfill. We said that when we made the law. We said if they're not safe for the landfill, let's take them out of the landfill, but let's make sure that we have programs in place to be able to divert them. So we operate a collection program for that. That was something that the private sector really hadn't been interested in doing, didn't have the means to do at the same level that they can provide curbside garbage and recycling pickup. They don't really have the ability to say, well, we're going to come by your house and pick up your electronics on the occasions when you might have them once or twice a year. So we provide that program. Similarly, pharmaceuticals, we've provided a program dating back 20 years for the collection of those items. We don't collect those anymore because we passed a state law that's the Drug Take Back Act, and now pharmacies across the state are collecting those medications in addition to our police departments and providing for the disposal and safe destruction of those items to not get them into our waste stream and to not get them back out into the public for distribution. We passed laws for paint, including latex paint. How many of you have had a hard time getting rid of latex paint? Only a couple? Wow, you guys are great. We get a call about latex paint at least once a day. Latex paint is not hazardous. It's able to be just dried out and thrown in the garbage, but it's a problem for people to get rid of because you move into a house and there are 18 gallons of paint in various stages of decay and dried outness that you can't use or you don't know which room they belong to, and you're now left with having to get rid of them to make room on the basement shelf for your cans of paint. So starting December 1st, we are going to have options for the collection and take back of latex paint in addition to oil-based paints for recycling. We do not have the information about the locations where that's going to happen yet. That information will be coming. We've been told that we won't know until December 1st, but as soon as we know that, it will be on SWANCC's website. We'll be sharing it out to all of our members and partners. Batteries, all types of batteries are going to be collected for recycling beginning January 1st. We have run a battery program as an agency for many, many years. Glenview used to participate in our program. They stopped participating a few years ago. And this now gets past the barriers that have existed previously for collecting batteries. And again, retail sites will be the predominant location for collecting batteries. And you'll be able to take batteries of any chemistry, whether they're rechargeable or lithium rechargeables and your alkaline batteries, and take them to a collection site for proper recycling. We're really excited about that because if any of you see in the news, we see more and more information about battery fires. Battery fires happen in our homes when we're not properly charging batteries, but they also happen when you put them into the waste stream or worse, the recycling stream, and can damage all that equipment and put people's lives at risk. So we're also working on packaging and paper products with a big study going on for that right now. We're looking at options for household chemicals, and then we plan to introduce a bill for mattresses next year. So we really try to tackle these products that are hard to handle. They're not typical. They don't happen every day as something that we need to dispose of, with the exception of those packaging and paper products. And that has been a lot of our focus as an agency with the powers that we have to be able to lobby for that legislation. So a few things that are new or upcoming. I already talked about the paint and the battery implementation. And we've got a couple other bills that are in progress on compost market development and diversion requirements. That is a bill that would require more entities, especially food generating businesses, to divert their food scrap from disposal and send it either for donation if it's edible or to a organics composting facility. That was introduced this year. We are working on a household chemical waste bill that would increase our opportunities to get rid of household chemicals. So you wouldn't have to drive to Lake County or drive to Naperville or drive into the city of Chicago or hope that we get a one-day event at some point, and make those opportunities more available. And we also started our own at-home chemical waste collection program as an agency that our member communities can opt into. There is a cost associated with that. Residents have to pay $75 for that pickup, and Glenview has not opted in at this point. We are still working with our communities. We have 7 who have opted in so far. So we're still working to find ways to encourage our communities to opt in. If it's something that you would like to see happen in Glenview, I would encourage you to reach out to Glenview staff to let them know that that's important to you. A couple other items. We have a new web tool, an app that Teresa will talk about called Recycle Coach, which is a phenomenal piece of education and source of information far beyond anything that we ever had in our recycling and reuse directory for anybody who was familiar with that. There's also a program called Hefty Renew, or the Orange Bag Program. Has anyone heard of this program? I see a couple of hands. It's good because Glenview can't participate right now. But I do want to tell you what it is, just so that you're aware that it does exist if you do hear about it and you understand the reasons that you're not participating. So the Hefty Renew Orange Bag Program is for hard to recycle plastics, primarily our film plastics or stretchy plastics, not just plastic bags, but like your wraps that go over packs of Gatorade or your flexible pouches, plastic silverware, cutlery, things like that, plastic cups. Styrofoam can all go into that orange bag. You have to buy the bag. It's about $8 for a pack of 20 bags. And when the bag gets full in the communities that are participating, you just tie up that bag and you put it in your curbside recycle cart. So it's just as convenient as all of your other curbside recycling, but we need to keep those materials separate because all of those items I just named are no-nos when we put them into the cart loose. And those are things that Javier will talk about. They cause problems at the facility. But if we can collect them into a bag, and if the facility they're going to can pull that bag off before it gets torn up, then it can be recycled. That's the limitation right now to rolling this out to more communities, is that not every recycling facility can pull those bags off at the front. But we do have a lot of other options to manage those types of materials that go into the bag already. Our film plastics can go to retail drop-offs. There's a number of them that work through the Next Trucks program. And styrofoam can go to Mount Prospect. The village has a collection program that you can drop off styrofoam twice a week, and they have a densifier where they will compact all of that styrofoam and then sell it out to a market. You can also take styrofoam to Apt if it's packaging foam. They don't take any food foam. So those are some very local options that are available unless or until we can get the Hefty Renew program to be available to you. And then finally, we have a new campaign for education awareness called Feed the Cart. So our friend Loop here was introduced to the market last week. We had a press conference with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and all of the area counties. So SWANCC, our sister agency in Lake County, SWANCC, DuPage County, Kane County, Will County, and McHenry County are all partners with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus on this US EPA grant-funded campaign to drive recycling education and awareness with the goal of reducing contamination in the recycling stream and increasing the amount of recyclables that we see. So Loop is going to be on billboards, social media ads, on your social media feeds, on websites across our region, and he is going to be sharing information about his appetite and all of the recyclables that he wants to eat, as well as the things that give him heartburn and that we don't want you to put in there, things like batteries and tanglers and other dangerous items. So keep your eye out for Loop. Don't be surprised if we have some kind of campaign where we do a flat loop. If you've ever heard of Flat Stanley, maybe we'll do a flat loop and take pictures of where you see Loop all around the area and do a couple of contests. We really are looking at this as the most funding that we've had for recycling education in a very, very long time. Loop. It doesn't stand for anything as 4 letters. It's his name was developed, one, because this is a Chicagoland campaign, so tying to Chicago's Loop as a recognizable geographic feature. But also when we talk about recycling and closing the loop, it makes a nice tie to the buying recycled, which is another one of our goals of the campaign. So we have decided that Loop is anthropomorphized as a male. We tend to refer to him as a he. His voice, when you hear, there will be ads, and he does have a character voice. He's a very Chicagoan male sounding voice. He's very entertaining. We hope that he is not viewed as too sophomoric for a lot of our community, but really what we're looking to do is to grab the attention of people, not like yourselves who are already committed and dedicated and aware recyclers, but that are on the fringes or that are in the more, I don't really pay attention to this, it doesn't really factor into my life. How can we get them excited? And if we can bring in the kids are going to shame everyone at home and everyone over the holidays into doing this right. So we'll be seeing Loop for the next couple of years all around the region. And with that, I am going to turn it back to Sherry.
Do you want to say anything about Goodwill?
Teresa will handle that.
Our next speaker is Teresa Guinan. She is the education coordinator for SWANCC. She has a Master of Science in Education, specializing in curriculum and instruction in environmental education through Northern Illinois University. With almost 30 years in education, Teresa strives to provide specialized, multidisciplinary, innovative, and fun learning opportunities for all ages that evoke a broader understanding of sustainability, waste management, and the environment. Please welcome Teresa Grining.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Can everybody hear okay? Excellent. So rewinding back, looping back around, if you will, from where Christina left off, definitely you're going to see Loop as part of SWANCC's education campaign as well, in addition to what we put out for all of our communities on a regular basis. But when we go back and start to look at the idea of sustainability and what collectively we're all aiming to do and what SWANCC is looking to help promote, and we think about the waste hierarchy. We all hear reduce, reuse, compost, and recycle, right? I say it so often I roll my own eyes. But when we think about that, I ask you, which of these is most important? What do you think? Reduce, right? So when we go and speak to audiences, I ask that question to everyone of all ages, and I usually always hear reduce or possibly reuse. So I put the question back out to you. Why did you invite us here to talk about recycling? Right? So recycling is a very important part of this hierarchy that we are going to just do a quick review of. But we also need to keep in our own minds that while we recognize that reduce and reuse are key components to this, it doesn't always come forefront in our mind, maybe when we're shopping or we have materials in our hand. Usually what comes to mind first is, what the heck do I do with this now? Right? And that's what we talk to people about a lot. And that's the idea, of course, of recycling and managing our waste properly. So when we look quickly at our waste hierarchy, which again is something most everyone in this room is not unfamiliar with, we see that the idea of recycling and compost, right, is kind of more in the middle line of that. So we're going to do kind of a quick review of a bunch of different aspects of that and bring us full circle to the recycle. So when we have something that we are looking to get rid of, we usually have, well, not usually, we always have the same options, right? One of those options is sending it to the landfill. And yes, material belongs in the landfill. Not all of it, but some of it does go there. So what happens with that once we put our bag, right, that waste into the bin, out on the curb? Maybe if we have some other folks at home, they say, oh, the truck is coming, right? And they watch that big bin we have get dumped into the truck and hauled away. So when our waste gets hauled, it goes to the Glenview transfer station in Des Plaines. So our trucks arrive to that exact same building you see up on the screen. Very generally speaking, it's all dumped out on the floor. And loaders load all of that waste into large semis. And then all of that material is hauled out to the Winnebago landfill, which is just outside of Rockford. And for the 23 member communities that Christina had mentioned, we contribute about 250,000 tons of material to the landfill annually. So that's just the material that's going to the landfill. That does not include the weight of our material that we're recycling or that we have the ability, in some cases, to compost. But some of our material does go there, right? So then the other option is compost. On average, approximately 50% of what we put in every bag we haul out to the curb to send to the landfill could be composted. Not every area has the same access to compost. We do have the opportunity to compost at home in our yard if that's an area that's available. We could vermicompost inside of our homes or even use a bokashi system of fermenting. But that doesn't always work for everyone. But in Glenview, You can find some of your information if you were unaware that it did exist on your village's website, which is up on the screen there for you. But you have the ability to put some of your waste mixed in with your regular yard waste. But also there's a pilot program, if you were unaware, currently active through Collective Resources that has public food scrap collection bins available for you to participate in. Some of those bins are located at the library and the others are over at Public Works. And then of course comes the conversation for what we're all here for, right? Recycling. What goes in that bin and what does not? So when we think about recycling, what we urge you to do, and again, to what Loop is going to urge you to do, is to think first and keep it simple. So when we see this chasing arrow symbol, that does not mean we can put it in the bin, which is where a lot of that confusion comes from, right? Because it's printed on everything. But what that symbol was initially designed to mean is to ask us to stop and think. So it asks us to first consider, have we worked to reduce our waste? The second arrow asks us, have we reused the material we have? Is it truly waste yet? And then that third arrow asks the question. It doesn't give a definitive answer, but it asks that question of, is the item we have eligible to go in our recycle bin in the area we currently are in? It might be different if you go from Illinois to Colorado to California or out to Boston, right? So within the area we are currently in. So recycling is about quality and not about quantity. It's another thing to keep in mind when we're standing there with that item at our recycle cart going, oh man, what do I do with this? I don't want to send it to the landfill, but I don't know if I can put it in the bin. We need to remind ourselves the quality is important. So everything goes in our bin, empty, clean, and dry. No bags allowed, right? Everything goes in loose. So if your home is like mine, we collect our recycled material in a bag in my kitchen. When I walk out to that recycling cart, dump the bag into the bin, reuse the bag. There we go. Empty, loose, clean, dry, no bags. And Javier can explain a little bit more as the reason to why we do not bag our material. It's also important that we flatten our boxes and that we close the lid on that cart. It keeps material from blowing out into our environment. It also keeps the critters from diving in or any of the rain or other environmental conditions that may affect the material that's in that bin. And SWANCC offers curbside guidelines. You can find these on our website. They're available in English and Spanish. You're welcome to print them off poster size or just hang it on your fridge, put it on your phone, whatever's going to work best for you. But what it helps to do in its most simple form is to show what we do want to see in your recycle cart all the time. And some of the common items that don't belong there. It doesn't mean they might not be able to be recycled. They just can't go into your cart. So then what do we do with those materials that we know can't go to the trash? And you've just heard that can't go to your recycle cart either. Often there's a special collection program for those. And Christina had mentioned a few of those through some of the legislative work that our agency and partners have done, as well as some of the programs that we have available. So for electronics, we know it's the law. We're aware that there are SWANCC collection programs that you can bring those materials to free of charge. We also sponsor a CFL and fluorescent tubes program. Your community participates in the CFL collection, so you can bring those. I'm not sure where your collection bin is, but you can bring those here to Glenview and they'll be collected. Your fluorescent tubes are able to be brought to any of the household hazardous waste facilities. Well, they will take those from you free of charge. She had already mentioned the SHARPS program. and information about the lithium batteries. And I'm just going to take a moment to highlight that quickly, and Javier will highlight it again as well, just because it is vitally important. Those batteries are amazing. They're not in, they were not in, I should say, most of the materials that we all grew up with. So sometimes we're unfamiliar with the fact that the lithium batteries are really dangerous. All of our kids are aware of it because that's what's in all of their stuff. But for us, it might kind of be a new thing. So those lithium batteries and being aware of them and the proper management really is vitally important. We also sponsor document destruction events, of which Glenview participates in as well. And then there are options that aren't necessarily SWANCC sponsored, but are available out in our communities as well. So textiles, for instance. So there's a program called Simple Recycling that has permission to be in Glenview. They offer a program that picks up at your door. You just have to schedule that. There are other drop-off locations in your community as well, through Helping Hands, through Use Again bins. So textiles don't have to go to the trash. They can go to a recycle program. 'Tis the season, we're coming up on Halloween, and some of those orange string lights are out there. They might be burning out on us, and for our winter holiday seasons as well. Again, those string lights, they can't go into the recycle cart. But there are collection programs. There's a collection program sponsored especially through Elgin Recycling, and we had just heard that Glenview did sign up for that program and will be collecting lights again this year. As well as, medications, as Christina mentioned. There's our household hazardous waste facilities that are sponsored by the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency for the majority of all those things you find in your garage, under your kitchen sink, in the bathroom, out in the shed that you're looking to get rid of. And then she'd also mentioned the paint and battery program. In addition, Christina had mentioned the Hefty Renew program. There's another program that some of you might have started to hear about either through social media or postcards out in the mail, and that's called a Ridwell program. It's kind of a new program that's being launched in a lot of our areas. We don't have the nitty gritty, I's dotted, T's crossed kind of information to speak incredibly well about that program. But currently, Glenview is only eligible for the mail-in portion of that program, and it is a fee-based program. And everything that is collected through that Ridwell program, you all have access to in other ways that Christina and I have already talked about. So as we know more, we will always share more if it's our program or not. And then, as Christina mentioned, there is a new resource, a search engine called Recycle Coach. And Recycle Coach is amazing. It is a search engine, is the best way to describe it. You can find it on the Village's website. You can find it on our website. It's an app you can download to your home computer, to your mobile device, and have it at your fingertips. There are over 400 searchable materials, 15,000 synonyms, an abundance of languages. It's very, very accessible. So this is kind of how it looks like. Say, for example, you go to Village of Glenview's website and you find the Recycle Coach app. This is exactly what you're going to see on the screen. And in that search bar, that what goes where component is what gives you the opportunity to start typing a material you're looking to figure out what to do with. There are, as I digress, really other great features on this app as well. You can look at your village schedule, find information on collections. The Discovery Zone has lots of additional information you can take a deeper dive into. But that what goes where search engine is what folks tend to use the most. So for example, if you have a fire extinguisher, we know it can't go in your recycle bin. We know it can't go in the trash. So now what, right? Start typing in that word fire. You're going to get a drop-down list. You'll see fire extinguishers is one of them. All you need to do is click on that. It's going to pop up a picture for you so you can also visually see, yes, I've got that right item. It's going to give you some information about it. So for instance, here it confirms it's a no-no for the garbage and the recycle. So it gives you the option for now what? Down on the bottom, there's that little icon for drop-off locations. Once you click that, it opens a list of what we call depots, or their resources. So these are 4 resources that are available to you for being able to get rid of that fire extinguisher responsibly. And from there, as you can see, it says details. There's that bar that's there. All you need to do is click on one of those. You can geolocate that location, come up with a website, phone number, any other information you'd like for that particular facility. So if this is not something that any of you have used before, and you'd like to download it on your phone, or you have some questions about how to do so, one of the things I'm happy to help with during break or after our presentation is to help you go to that app store. It's free. Get it on your phone and have it available to use. The other really good thing, really good reason to put it maybe on your phone or mobile device, is it has a photo option as well. So all you have to do is click a photo of what you're looking for and it navigates everything for you. You don't even have to make a choice. So we'll move on from that. Oops, sorry about that. I didn't highlight your choices for that depot. So just in closing almost, SWANCC offers a variety of educational resources and services that are available to all of our residents. So we've talked about our website. You can follow us on social media. We too, just like Greener Glenview, send out a newsletter once a month with information, tidbits, helpful information for you. We have a frequently asked question page where you can take a deeper dive into a lot of that what goes where type of questions. We offer school programs, public programs, the opportunity for our communities to participate in cart tagging education programs. We also offer some different grants to help perpetuate or kind of light that fire under some good ideas that our communities have. So with that, on behalf of Christina and myself, we want to say thank you very much for hanging out with us and listening to the SWANCC portion of the presentation. I think right now we're due to take about a 5-minute break or so, and then we will return back with the highlight of our night, Javier from Groot.
Thank you, Christina and Teresa. I want to mention, I forgot to mention this up front. You've heard a lot of information already. Maybe your heads are spinning. But never fear, this is being recorded by the library, and it may be up on the library's website by Friday. Or if not by Friday, by the middle of next week. Okay, great. So feel free to, stand up, walk around, fill out questions. You fill out or ask some questions on your note cards, and a couple folks will collect your note cards. And think of the questions you have for Javier as well. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Should
Sure.
that be enough? Okay, 5-minute break, folks. Thank you. For all your questions, again, we'll get through these questions. Afterwards, Javier will probably address some of the questions in his presentation. And then if there's time left over, then we can take questions directly from the audience if you thought of something that hasn't already been asked. So Javier Arasso is a district manager with 20 years of experience in the solid waste and recycling industry. He specializes in municipal recycling operations, material recovery, and waste diversion strategies. Javier has led efforts to optimize MRF performance. If you don't know what a MRF is, you will momentarily. Improve recovery material quality and support local governments in implementing sustainable waste management programs. He works closely with municipalities to deliver education, operational support, and data-driven insights that enhance recycling outcomes. Known for his collaborative approach and practical mindset, Javier is committed to advancing environmentally responsible solutions across the region. Please welcome Javier.
All right, perfect. Good evening, and thanks for having me. I'm going to shed some light on the operational side of the operation of this presentation. So my team and I work at a MRF, a material recovery facility. A material recovery facility is where items from curbside, commercial, and some industrial outlets come to our facilities. And what our team does there is we don't turn it into a new product there. So we prepare it. We process the material, we bale that material, and then we sell that to an end user who is then going to turn that into a new product.
A little louder, please.
All right. Better?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. This is some of the items or most commonly found items in our stream. Glass, and this is a flow chart of how the material flows through our facility from the beginning stage of our in-feed lines all the way to the end. So at each sort station, we're recovering or we're cleaning up the stream or separating recyclables from one another. Glass is the first thing that we'll remove out of the stream. Glass is broken down into small shards of 2 to 3 inches. And this is why we ask that items such as straws, plastic cutlery, K-cups, somebody asked, it get asked frequently. Anything smaller than 3 inches is going to filter through, it's going to fall through and contaminate those glass or those 3-inch glass shards. And we do that because glass is very corrosive, so it can damage the equipment. So we separate that on the front end, and that material is transported on a separate sort line that does not come in contact with the rest of the recyclables, because it also reduces the lifetime of some of these of the equipment, like the shafts and some of these screens. Cardboard, corrugated cardboard to be exact, is the second thing that we remove out of the stream. So large cardboard boxes from appliances, and then mixed paper, which is a combination of newspaper, magazine, ads, anything that's fiber, even cereal boxes, chipboard, smaller cardboard, and then number 2 plastics. Number 2 plastics are sorted out, and then they are separated by the HD natural, which are your milk jugs, or most commonly milk jugs and also the mixed color, which are typically your detergent bottles. We separate those. A lot of facilities don't have the technology or the bunker space to separate them, and they'll just blend it and sell the material like that. But by separating those 2 grades, the natural and the color, we're able to get a higher return on the natural. It typically, and these prices fluctuate month over month, but for example, natural right now is somewhere around $1,000 per ton. Color is like $300, $200. So by separating, we're able to get a better return on that material. And then tin steel cans are separated next by a magnet belt, and aluminum, PET, which are your water bottles, and polypropylene. So those are the 4 plastic grades that we have a strong, sustainable market for, and consistently receive a higher volume of in the curbside programs or in our single stream. This is same guidelines that SWANCC has somewhere in the back for you guys to scan. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the items in bottom, such as the medical waste, the electronics, the sharps, the plastics, food waste, and a lot of these other contaminants, and the challenges of why we ask you guys not to put it in your curbside bins or your carts, and the challenges that we face when those do enter our facilities, and we'll do so by explaining how we sort the materials. What are the sorting technologies? So in addition to manual sorting, we have mechanical, optical, and robotic sorting that happens at our facility. The mechanical portion is done by sorting screens. The screens are positioned in an angle to allow containers to roll back or to fall through the spacing in between. As you can see in that image, there's spacing in between those start screens, those rubber discs. Launch flattened out cardboard and paper upwards, or two-dimensional recyclables upwards, mostly fiber. And the containers then fall through or roll back onto a separate conveyor line. And then after the fiber portion of the material has been recovered, the mixed paper and the cardboard, then we start separating the plastic and the metal and aluminum containers out of the stream. We do that in combination of, by combination of optical sorting and robotic sorting. The optical sorters are programmed and with images of the items it's supposed to recover or remove out of that stream. Once that item reaches the end of that line, a series of air jets will blast that onto its designated line, and the rest of the material will continue flowing onto the next storage station. As I explained earlier, the number 2 plastics, the HDPE natural and color, are both ejected by this optical sorter. But then, and we'll talk about the robotic sorters a little further up, but then after that, our robotic sorters then removes whatever contaminants, like anything that isn't a number 2 plastic, even if it's other recyclables like paper that might have floated onto the wrong belt, or a number 1 plastic or a number 5 plastic that somehow ended up landing on there. The robotic sorters are going to remove that out of the stream, and then the second robotic sorter is then going to separate the natural from the color, and then the manual sorters are there to kind of quality control the material. The equipment itself does 80 to 90% of the separation. The manual sorters are just there to ensure the quality of the materials there, because if you're an end user who's buying cardboard, paper, plastic, or metal or aluminum, you want your money's worth, right? If you paid for cardboard, you don't want plastic, aluminum. And also, it could also clog up their systems, because they're going to pulp this material, and plastic and metal and aluminum doesn't pulp very well. And then robotic sorters. So robotic sorters were installed in 2021. We have 5 of them. And they pretty much do the same, or around the same, 80 picks per minute, about the same as a manual sorter or a high-performing manual sorter. But the beauty in these is that often a lot of the operation impediments, such as like the sharps, broken glass, stuff that our manual sorters are coming into contact and either getting needle punctures with medical waste of the syringes that are found sometimes inside of these plastic containers, or just broken glass that goes in. The optical sorters help separate that material and reduces the hazards that some of our manual sorters face. Before installing these, we probably had, I'd say probably a needle puncture once a month or every other month. Now we probably have 1 or 2 a year. They're still there. It hasn't completely eliminated, because we still have manual sorters. There's still a human aspect to what we do. And that's one of the most common questions that I get asked is, there's one message that you'd send out to residents or to municipalities, what would that be? And Teresa did a newsletter article on that as well, and it's still on the
It's
website.
still there, yep.
She did a phenomenal job on that, but it is. I myself, 20 years ago when I first started there, I started there as a manual sorter, and I was coming into contact with some of this stuff. Used tissue paper and diapers and sharps, medical waste. There's a human aspect to what we're doing, and there's people that are impacted at these facilities when they come into contact with these materials, and lithium batteries or flammables altogether, propane tanks that haven't been emptied out. They cause fires. We back in 2021, we lost a facility in Plainfield that we had just recently acquired to a battery fire. Battery somehow ended up in one of our plastic bunkers, buried underneath probably 10 feet of containers. We don't know if it was damaged, if it was damaged in the process, or if it was just defective, but it exploded. It caused a fire that within 7 minutes we had to evacuate because it got out of hand. We must have emptied out at least 12 fire extinguishers, and we were putting out small spot fires, but we weren't able to completely extinguish it at that point. We just evacuated, and within 5-7 minutes, we lost the entire facility. It spread like literally like wildfire. We have large overhead doors where vehicles will back into, or our equipment is moving in and out. So we had all those open because it was a hot day, but it was also a windy day. So when that wind started blowing, that fire around it. And that image that you see there up above the fire, that is an actual image of a fire on our TIF floor. This happened about 2 or 3 years ago, but it is not uncommon for us. That's probably one of the largest ones, but we probably deal with fires on a daily basis during certain seasons. Yeah, there are certain seasons where we're not only on a daily basis, sometimes we'll have multiple fires within the same day. We're 24-hour operation, so sometimes we'll have a fire, we'll suppress it, extinguish it, and then within that same area, second shift will come in hours later and something else will reignite. So lithium batteries, electronics that are found, at least a high percentage of the fires that we have are due to electronics or these lithium batteries. And you know, these could happen at your household, these could happen in your bin as well, because often these batteries are defective or damaged prior to even arriving to our facility. But even if they make it, you know, out of your recycling, they get compacted by that truck that collects your trash. And we lost 7 trucks last year to fires. We don't know that all of them were due to battery fires, but 7 trucks were lost. And you know, that puts a lot of people at risk, including the fire responders, because they're often having to put out a fire on the side of the road. And, you know, there's also pedestrians and other people around. But then if it makes it all the way to our facility, this fire in particular happened because our wheel loader, when it went in there to pick up a scoop of recyclables to feed into the feed line, it ran it over and it crushed it, and that spark, I mean, we're talking about 500 tons of flammable material, fiber, plastic, it's all very flammable, especially in the summertime when it's dry. All it takes is a small spark. So anything as small as those small dime size or nickel size batteries that are found in greeting cards, if that gets crushed and it sparks, that's all it takes, because there's a lot of fiber dust as well within the facility and the rafters. So a spark like that can result in a fire like that. That fire in particular took the fire department about 3 hours to put out completely. And we had to trash probably, I'd say 30 to 40 tons worth of recyclables that were, you know, either lost to the fire or just contaminated with all the water that the fire department had to use to extinguish it. And then bag recyclables, hoses, tanglers like Christmas lights result in clogging up. So as I explained earlier, those rubber disc screens, or that screen that separate the 2-dimensional from the 3-dimensional materials. When those bags rip or those hoses or tanglers wrap, it clogs up that spacing, as you can see in that image in the middle there, with 2 of our employees have to go in there on each deck screen. We have several employees that have to go in there and physically cut that material off, remove it out with either wire cutters or utility knives. Also, you know, we've had a lot of incidents removing this material, because often when you're cutting that material off, you're cutting through what you think is just a plastic film or a garbage bag, but underneath there might be wire or steel, and then that blade skips, and a lot of our manual sorters or our utility team ends up cutting themselves because that blade will skip, and then they end up cutting themselves, or they're the employee that's working right next to them. So we've had a lot of issues there. Also, when it's clogged up like that and if something jams up there, the friction of that material, especially the film, it's plastic, it's petroleum based. When it gets hot enough, that we've had fires in the screens as well that have started because of that film and the friction within in those rubber discs. We go on average between both shifts, each shift we go in there at least 3 times per day to clean it out so that, one, the recyclables have, or the spacing is there for the recyclables, the 3D recyclables to fall through, but to leave it ready for the next shift when they come in. That's on a good day when contamination, and it's seasonal too, right? When contamination rates are high, we're going in there as much as 8 times per shift. Each time we go in there, we're losing 15 to 20 minutes because it takes about 5 to 10 minutes just to lock out the equipment. There's a group of about 12, 15 employees that perform these tasks while the rest of the group is either on break or in between shifts. So anytime there's scheduled shutdowns, we'll go in there and clean them out as often as we can. That's on a good day again. When there's high contamination rates, we're losing upwards to on average 2 hours per shift, so 4 hours per day of runtime because we're having to go in there and clean out these screens. 2 hours may not, or 4 hours may not sound like much, but when you're processing 25 tons per hour, do the math, that's almost 100 tons of material that's not going to get processed. So then we're typically running Monday through Friday, and then we're coming in on Saturdays to do preventative maintenance. When we get that far behind because we didn't process 100 tons the day before, that all starts to accumulate, and now we're having to come in on a Saturday and run the system to keep up with the volume so that the trucks have space on the tip floor to continue bringing in more material. When we come in, and it's just a domino effect. When we come in on a Saturday, then that means the preventative maintenance because again, we're running almost 24 hours Monday through Friday. With about 2 hours or so between each shift to go in there and do some preventative maintenance. But we're running almost, that equipment's running almost 24 hours. It desperately needs that TLC on a Saturday to go in there and do the preventative maintenance. But when we're going in there to run the system, then that preventative maintenance doesn't get done. And then that downtime then increases the following week, or maybe not that week, but a couple of weeks later, and then it's just a never-ending cycle, right? So that's why we ask that we keep those items out of the stream, because the faucet never shuts. The material still keeps coming in, right? And if it doesn't come in, I'm probably getting phone calls from all you guys. So, and then lastly, medical waste and some of the other, and again, fires and all those health hazards are a huge challenge for us and our team. It's a tough job already as it is. We're performing a lot of repetitive movements, so there's already a lot of risk there for ergonomic related injuries, and then we add, even with the used tissues, even during COVID, I mentioned we were seeing a lot of those blue surgical masks were ending up because they're polypropylene, so people will throw them, they're used. We're just as susceptible to viruses and to diseases ourselves. So our folks are, we weren't touching that stuff, we were letting go, but it's still in the stream, and we're still coming into contact with it. So keep that in mind. Anything that you wouldn't want to handle, don't throw it in your recycling bin. What determines if an item is curbside acceptable? On material composition, the limitations that our equipment has, and is there a sustainable market for it? So material composition, is it made from a single recyclable material like plastic, cardboard, or aluminum? Multi-layered materials are not recyclable curbside, such as that Pringles can. That's a pretty easy one to point out, right? The can itself is made out of cardboard, the lid's made out of plastic, and then the bottom is made out of aluminum or steel. When you're processing 25 tons per hour, those belts are moving at a very high speed. You're not going to be able to remove the plastic lid, remove the cardboard and the aluminum portion out of it, at least not without losing 25 or 24 other tons of otherwise good recyclables.
So is the lid recyclable if the person takes it off?
Yes, so if you do the pre-sort at home, it would definitely help. But we're not going to be able to do it once it arrives on our sort lines. Somebody had just asked about clean and empty materials, and this isn't just for food. There's we also, a lot of the fires that we have are containers that, such as paint or other containers that contain flammable liquids. When these materials are collected or separated, they're separated by magnets. So the propane tanks and some of these, gasoline or just anything that's flammable in a steel or a tin metal container, it gets picked up by a magnet. The magnet does not know how to differentiate if it's flammable or not. It's going to collect, if it's made out of steel, it's going to collect it and it's going to dump it into a bunker. Once that bunker is full along with, the otherwise good recyclables like tin cans from food products, it gets baled. So when those containers get compacted, we have these large explosions that luckily, we haven't had any injuries with our employees, but our employees are just feet away from that, who are controlling those balers, are just feet away from those containers when they explode. And some of those explosions are large enough where my office was like right behind, back when I was a supervisor, was right behind one of those balers off. And I would feel the entire office there, the windows rattle. That's how hard of an explosion it was. And you'll see the blast of the flames. And when we go back and review the footage, you'll see the blast of. So we ask our operators and we put shields and guards. We ask them to stay away and stay clear. And we typically bail those materials while everybody is on break, or we section off that area when we go to bail or empty out those bunkers for that same reason. So equipment limitations. MRFs are designed to process specific shapes and sizes. One of the most common misconceptions is that just because something's made out of paper, plastic, metal, or aluminum, that it's curbside acceptable, and it's not. As I explained earlier, anything smaller than 3 inches is going to fall into our glass and contaminate that glass stream. But anything larger than a detergent bottle could also jam up our optical sorters or our robotic sorters. Or we have a series of 300 conveyor lines of various lengths and widths. Some of those are very narrow lines. And anytime there is a 90-degree turn, there's potential for those large, bulky, rigid plastics to jam up, causing even more downtime than we have. So on top of cleaning out screens, we're also dealing with jams on a constant basis. We're probably spending another hour or so, between 15 minutes here and 20 minutes there throughout a shift, unjamming material, of removing our items that shouldn't have been in the stream to begin with. And then we spoke about tanglers, hoses, wires, and plastic bags and how they jam on those screens, but they also wrap around shafts, pulleys, and it damages that equipment to the point where sometimes we have to stop and remove and replace that shaft or that screen, and sometimes that takes hours. So like I said earlier, we normally leave a window of about 2 hours between shifts to perform these tasks of cleaning out and removing. But when you're replacing a conveyor line or you're replacing a shaft, it often takes more than 2 hours. So that's the work that if it can wait, or if the system can continue running, we'll then address on a Saturday. But sometimes we don't have that luxury. We have to work along with our maintenance team and the production team, and we'll have to shut down a shift about an hour or so earlier and start our second shift about an hour or so later, so that they have about 4 to 5 hours to perform that work. But like I explained earlier, the material still continues to pile on. So, and then We already touched on small items like loose bottles, caps, straws, and cutlery. The image you see on the bottom two squares there, the one on the left is going to be a pile of glass. These are the 3-inch, 2-inch shards of glass, but in it you'll find the most common contaminants are shredded paper. So a lot of people will throw shredded paper, bag it, and think that it's going to make it through the entire sort line or through the entire system, but it often rips on the first rubber disc screen that it comes in contact with. Or sometimes they get crushed, or when they get ran over, they fall apart. And you'll see that material, they've been to our facility. It's all over the place. It's in rafters, it's in the equipment, and we're constantly having to do housekeeping because that's also very flammable material. So whenever there's an explosion in those balers, that material in the rafter sometimes catches fire. So whenever we're doing maintenance and we're cutting and we're welding, that's the material that catches fire as well. And then the image right next to it is a zoom, and you can see that straws, bottle caps, plastic cutlery is often what you'll find in that stream there. So once that material is sent out to a recycler, they're going to have to remove all that material. That means at our facility, we're tied into a matrix pricing. So what we get for that commodity, or what we have to pay sometimes for processing, is determined on that non-glass residue. So if that percentage is 20, 30%, then we're paying upwards to $30 per ton to process. The cleaner it is, the lower the cost. And then sustainable markets. Recyclables have to have a reliable buyer or a market to be processed. And even if an item is technically recyclable, it may be excluded if no one is buying it. There's a lot of new packaging materials that are introduced every year. And for us, and we do a great job of evolving with our sorting equipment and retrofitting, but to a certain extent, there's only so much space that we have at our facilities. There's no more room. We're using about every square inch of that facility. There's no more room to add another optical sorter or another bunker. So newer items are introduced, but they're not keeping in mind that some of these might be a challenge for us to process at our facilities. So I often host a lot of packaging companies to come out to the facility and see some of the challenges that we're facing with some of these products, some of these multi-layered products, some of these items that are too small or too large, so that they can see the process start to end and see where it's bottlenecking us. Here are some stats of the material that gets recovered, and this is pretty consistent. It may vary in tonnage depending on seasonality. For example, on 4th of July, you'll see more aluminum cans and beverage containers. During the Christmas holidays, you might see a hike in fiber, like weekly ads and ads that you'll find in your newspapers, if there is still newspapers out there. So glass, cardboard, and paper are probably by volume the largest in our stream that's coming in, and what gets recovered is what you'll probably find most. And then plastic, aluminum, and metal are so. Aluminum is one of the highest paid commodities, but we only generate about 4 loads, which is roughly 84 tons a month. We generate 4 loads of cardboard a day and about 6 loads of mixed paper or paper products a day as well. So what we generate in a month of aluminum we'll do in fiber in a day. So after this material has been baled, processed, where does it go? The material that gets baled is sent out to paper mills or recycling facilities that specialize in fiber recovery. And then these items will then be turned into cardboard boxes, corrugated cardboard boxes that we use for packaging materials such as Amazon, UPS, FedEx, or large appliances. And then paper packaging or paperboard packaging, which is used for cereal boxes, shoe boxes, your soda cans, and tissue products, printing and writing paper. And again, this is getting pulped. This is shredded, pulped, cleaned to remove inks and contaminants, and then reformed into a new product. Plastic containers, depending on the grade, plastic bales are sorted by resin type, PET or #1 plastics, HDPE, PPE, polypropylene, or sent to plastics reclaimers or processors. These are going to get, especially PET, they're going to get turned into a new bottle, but most commonly used for polyester fiber or carpeting. HDPE, like the detergent bottles, are going to turn into pipes, plastic lumber, and new containers. And this plastic lumber is used for decking. It's used for playgrounds, benches, any of those items. And then polypropylene, or your yogurt cups. That material can be turned into automotive parts or storage bins, or even a yogurt cup again. It gets washed, gets grounded into flakes, gets melted and pelletized, and then molded and extruded into a new product. Somebody asked, earlier, somebody asked if they have to go in there and scrub and rinse and clean those containers up. Not necessarily, because the processes it's going to go through a wash once it reaches that end user. So just as long as there aren't large chunks or excessive food waste in the container, it's okay. It just has to be reasonably clean. Then metals, aluminum, and tin cans. Those are sent to smelters, and the UBC, or the used beverage cans, are going to get turned into a new aluminum can or automotive parts or construction material. We partner with Strategic Materials, who is now Sabelco. They're local, and they take all of our aluminum. I'm sorry, that's for glass. UBC is sent to a facility down in Louisiana, and they're the ones that are smelting, and they're going to turn it into a new aluminum can. So of the aluminum waste that we recover, aluminum foil and the aluminum tin cans that you use for like cat food, those are sorted separately, and those are sold separately from the aluminum cans, because the aluminum cans are going to be turned into beverage cans, so they don't want any food waste or any contaminants within there. And then the tin cans are going to be turned into rebar appliances and new food cans. It's shredded, it's clean, melted into a furnace, and then cast into new products. And then glass. Collected glass is sent to a glass recycling facility or cullet processors, where it's going to get sorted, prepared for reuse. And what it becomes is a new glass bottle or a jar, fiberglass insulation, or construction aggregates, such as road base and sand substitutes. This material is sorted by color: clear, green, and amber. Cleaned to remove labels, caps, and contaminants. Crushed into collet, small glass, it's almost like sand, and then melted in furnaces. And then it's molded into a new glass product or used in industrial applications.
So if you have a pickle jar, do you want the lid taken off first, or do you want to just throw it in the recycle bin and that they clean it?
Yeah, you can throw it in there with the label. They're going to remove it. Yep. So markets for recyclable. So which materials are capable of being recycled is a function of the separation technologies and the limitations of that technology. And also that we meet the processor's contamination specifications, that the material doesn't have excessive food waste or moisture. Each recycling commodity is mostly independent from each other, and the market value are constantly changing. Like I said, month over month it changes. So the best way to deal with the volatility is just to ignore it and to continue staying invested in paying attention to the short-term fluctuations. That concludes my portion, and I think we're ready for Q&A.
Okay, we have the room until 8:45, correct, Michael?
Yes, we need to be out.
We need to be out by 8:45, so it's 8:21 now. I'll let you folks figure out who's going first, second, and third, so take it away.
All right. Oh. Are we on? Excellent. So I had multiple questions on education programs that SWANCC offers. So we offer community programs, public tabling events. I do go into schools, businesses, churches, anyone who wants to listen to me talk to them. As long as you are in a SWANCC member community, I will do my very best to be there. Reach out to me on our website. We do have a request form that I will ask you to fill out, but we can talk those details if you're interested in that at all. Also along those lines, we did receive several questions similar to the association I live in, my neighbors, kind of the naysayers or the folks who don't want to do it right and we feel they're messing up our bins. How do we communicate that out? One of the things we also do is presentations in associations and businesses to help everyone to understand how to recycle correctly and what happens when we don't. And then there is also the component of within those questions of what do I tell my neighbor who refuses to do it right and throws it all in. We get that question a lot, and it really is okay to let them know, just please don't do it. Take all that material that you have that's waste and send it to the landfill so that we're not contaminating the work that we're trying to do. That's not an answer that really anybody wants to say. That's not where our hearts or minds are at, but usually you get a shockingly positive response to that. And that's something that we talk to our communities about as well. So reach out if you have those kinds of questions or need those types of presentations.
So I'm going to take a question that's somewhat along those lines. We were asked about the future for SWANCC with the next term of our agreements. What happens after 2031? We only have 6 years left. We're hoping that we maintain our status quo. We're hoping that we take our learnings from the last 40 years and we figure out what the next 20 look like. We don't expect that we're planning for 40, but next 20 would be a good period to look at, and we don't see that there's a reason to go away from what we've done. But we would like to be able to bring these education programs and the services that we provide and the resources that we offer to divert waste into the communities that don't currently participate as a member of SWANCC. There has been a barrier to being able to do that during this initial term of our agreement because there's a cost involved. So there's some legalese and some certain things that have to be met in order for communities to be a member of the agency. Very political and very formal because we are a unit of government. Can't just willy-nilly let somebody in as much as we would love to. But all those resources that are on our website are available for free. We take phone calls regularly from non-members and still work with you because we are part of a greater region. We are all invested in sharing out the information.
I got one. All right. Can paper and cardboard constructed from recycled materials be recycled? Yes, so that's that paper board that we're talking about. It can be turned into corrugated cardboard because that material is typically used to package heavier materials or products. But cereal boxes, the shoe boxes, and the beverage can boxes are constructed of recycled paper, cardboard.
There was another education type question asking if, quoting, reduce is inclusive of crushing our containers and packaging before disposal, such as milk jugs and pop cans, right? Like we all used to do. So no, reduce is the idea of producing more waste. Let me rephrase that. Reduce is the concept of producing less waste we'll say that again, less waste than we are currently. That's not the reduction of size in our bins. And as Javier had suggested as well, all of, or the greatest majority of materials at the MRF are identified in dimensional form. So we flatten our boxes, but nothing else.
So I'm going to take a couple of questions that we got that Javier got you all fired up about, pun intended. A couple questions about batteries. So there was a question about whether regular batteries, so alkaline batteries, can just go in the trash. Absolutely, they can. They are not going to be hazardous. They are not going to cause a fire. The problem becomes that we have now AA and AAA batteries that are also lithium batteries. They look like an alkaline battery. They serve in the same function as an alkaline battery, but they're actually containing lithium. And for most of us, that can often be hard to read on that battery. I sit there and I go, I'm not sure what you are, and I don't have the foggiest idea of what to do with it. So our program that we will roll out with the new legislation is for all battery chemistries to make sure that we're getting those dangerous ones out of the stream. There was another question about whether we are going to need to sort those batteries by type. We don't think so, but don't hold me to that because we don't have all the details yet. Call to Recycle, which is the national nonprofit organization that runs battery collections right now at stores like Best Buy and Staples and Lowe's and Home Depot, is going to be the stewardship organization running that program. Generally, their containers that those batteries go into do not have to be sorted by type, do not have to be terminal protected. However, be mindful of the fact that you are collecting these in your home. You are probably holding on to them for some period of time. You may want to go ahead and tape those terminals for your own safety and for safety during transport until we can get them there. So you just use a clear tape. Best to use is a packaging tape so that it has, but we, like with the coin batteries, we'll tell you to make a little ravioli out of it. So you tape it on both sides, and that way they can still see the battery when they're going through the sorting process to be able to determine how they sort it at those facilities. And it doesn't obscure it. Duct tape or electrical tape, not the best to use, but in a pinch, I suppose you can, or put them in a plastic baggie. Yes, both your ends. Now, if it's an alkaline battery and you know for sure it's an alkaline battery, you don't need to tape it. No, because we don't want those terminals touching. Once they're taped, they can be put, you can bunch them together. Make sure they're taped first.
I'll take another one. This is a common one I get, and I think I might have touched a bit on it. Should caps and lids stay on top of the recycled bottles, jars, or tubs? The rule of thumb is if the cap or the lid is made out of the same material as the container, yes. But if it's a glass container with a metal jar or lid, then no. The lid will go on removed, and that'll get separated separately. And most of the plastic containers are that we bail, and I think some of those pictures that I think don't do it justice. I should have zoomed in a little bit more, but most of those plastic containers that were thrown into the cart with the lid on have a higher percentage of making it through the entire process and being recovered. The ones that are thrown in there loose end up in that glass pile that we spoke about because they're smaller than that 3 inches.
We have a stack of item questions, and then we do still have some other questions as well. So we'll start throwing some of those in. One of them is, do we recycle the K-cup coffees? So that waste hierarchy we talked about, that reduce portion first, I'll just leave that with you to think about. But generally, no, those do not belong in your recycling. You can cut the tops open and compost that coffee, but the rest of the container must go to the trash.
And I will say, if you want to be a coffee snob, you can get the Nespresso machine, and Nespresso does take their capsules back. They're all aluminum, and they have a free mail bag program to be able to return those.
Can I just say on the K-cup, look at the boxes that you buy and all that. It says on it, like Starbucks, clean out everything out, it's recycled. And so that's a pretty big company to state that when it's not true.
It is, but remember the chasing arrow symbol we talked about, that just because that's printed on something does not give you the answer that it can go in the bin. It's just meant to make you think. I do not disagree with your statement, but they cannot go into your recycle bin.
And it is technically recyclable material. It's just the size, shape of the material that makes it difficult for us to process at the facility. That's why we don't add it to the curbside program.
All clear as mud. Okay, I have a couple of fee-based questions, and then I don't have any more questions in front of me, and we'll just hit those materials, I think, over and over. One question was on the chemical waste pickup and the $75 charge. Now, remember, this isn't available to Glenview residents right now, but if it would become available, there is 70 pounds of material that you're able to set out within that $75 collection fee, and the community does have to pick up the remainder of the cost, which is far more than your $75 that you're paying. And we are not collecting paint through that program currently. We are hoping that with the new paint law that we might be able to start doing that. But otherwise, we encourage that if it does come to Glenview, that you band together with your neighbors. 70 pounds of chemicals can be a lot, unless you have a lot of fertilizers and pesticides and things that have accumulated over a long time that are denser. And we do let you band that together with neighbors. One person calls and makes the appointment, pays the fee, but you can split it 3 ways, and now you're $25 to get it picked up. Second fee question was on the mattress recycling program that we were talking about, whether there would be a fee to recycle your mattress. And we don't know exactly yet. We haven't drafted the legislation. The model that exists right now in other states that do have mattress recycling laws is that there's a fee that you pay when you buy your mattress that funds the end of life management of that mattress. That fee is around $20 per mattress in those other states right now. So when you think about your total cost of your mattress, not a huge added component to know that you're going to have the end of life covered for it. What we are seeing currently is that landfills are starting to charge a $75 fee to get rid of mattresses. We charge that at our transfer station now. We take in about 140 to 150 mattresses a month. Not generally from residents. That doesn't include what gets picked up at your curb under your contracts. That's what's coming in from people doing property cleanouts, hotels that are changing over mattresses, things like that. And they're paying $75 for each mattress. So obviously this program would be a great advantage, and mattresses are actually able to be recycled. Now they're not going to make a new mattress, but that product, that textile and other material in there goes to new uses.
I got one more.
Go for
I
it.
got a few more. I'll start with our paper grocery bags recyclable. Yes, and you could also, instead of bagging them in plastic bags, you can bag some of those recyclables in paper bags. It is a paper product. So yeah, paper grocery bags are recyclable. I have another one here. Our takeout containers recyclable, for example, black plastics. We were just talking about that on our call. Yes, but we are not advertising them because our manual sorters are recovering them on a smaller scale, but our optical sorters have a difficult job of recovering the material, or those plastic containers are primarily sorted out by those optical sorters. But because black absorbs light and the optical sorters are recognizing or separating those materials based on that light that reflects back and tells the optical sorter what grade of plastic that is. And also because the black plastics are running on black conveyor lines, the conveyor belts that we have in our facilities are all black. They typically aren't able to recognize them. So a lot of it is very difficult to sort. So we're not adding them to the curbside until we're, and the technology is evolving. We just don't have the technology in our optical sorters where it can detect it or sort it, so we don't want to.
Not yet.
Not yet, no. So we are technically recovering on a smaller scale, whatever our manual sorters are able to capture, but it's a very small percentage of what's actually in the grid.
I'll run down a few quick daily questions that come to the office. Excuse me. Pill bottles recyclable. The short answer to that is not curbside. They do go to the trash. There are some veterinary facilities that will take them. You can utilize a mail-in program called Matthew 25. There are some other programs that do take them, but they don't take them bulk forever. So the short answer is no, they can't go to your bin. What do we do with photographs? So photographs, CDs, jewel cases, all that type of material all go to the trash. They cannot go to the recycle bin. Javier covered shredded paper, but just to be sure everyone understands, bag it tightly, put it in the trash. Yogurt foil tops are not recyclable. They're not true foil. They go to the trash. Bubble wrap, as long, again, as it's kind of a single material, not a mixed type of material, you can collect your bubble wrap and return it with your other flexible plastic back to the big box and grocery store drop-offs. And there's another one about plastic wrap, so the same scenario. As long as it's a single type of flexible plastic, it can go with those plastic grocery bags back to the grocery store.
Could you repeat the answer about photographs?
They go to the trash, to the garbage, to the landfill. Yes, they're not recyclable.
All right, I got a few more here. Does Groot only recycle plastics labeled number 1, 2, and 5? So like I explained earlier, there is limitations. We don't have the bunker space to include, so we focus the bunker space and the technology, the sorting technology that we have for those grades because there is a good sustainable market for it and there's a high percentage of those volumes in the stream. So we focus on 1s, 2s, and 5s, but there is in that number 5 plastic or mixed plastic bale, there is a small percentage of other plastics in there, but those often aren't going to get recycled by the processor either. So we advertise 1s, 2s, and 5s. And a follow-up question to that is clear plastic containers that are typically used for packaging fruit. As long as they're that 1, 2, or 5, then yes, the clear ones, yes.
We're going rapid fire now because we have 2 minutes, Sherry's telling me. All right, couple of questions about non-curbside cart items that we would have probably never thought would go in curbside, but we need to manage anyway. Non-stick pans that have scratches, go to a scrapper. Take them to any of your scrap metal facilities. Even though they're metal and they might get caught at the MRF, we don't want them there, not the right type of metal. Cooking oil, we send you to a household hazardous waste facility to get rid of that material. Really try to find ways that you can reuse it at home first.
Cartons, the paper type cartons, such as soup or wine type of containers, those can be rinsed and can go curbside. How do we recycle books? The best thing to do for books is to donate them someplace. If they are non-donatable material, if they are a soft cover book, they are eligible to go to your recycle. If they are hardcover, they unfortunately go to the trash. Pet food can containers, I believe, was answered. As long as they are empty and clean, they are food-based, they can go to your recycle bin. Broken plastic hangers, again, those are tanglers. If they are plastic or if they are metal, it doesn't matter. They are trash. And Javier just answered the questions about the numbers. I have one thing I want to say.
I have one thing I want to add. So we have these items that we know you guys all think of and you've obviously encountered in your day-to-day, need to get rid of. What we're really hoping to do, and this goes back to the Feed the Cart campaign and our friendly little guy Loop, keeping it simple. If we could collect every cardboard box, every metal food can and aluminum beverage can, every plastic soda bottle, every detergent bottle, milk jug, if we got all of those things, we would not even want to sit here and tell you to do any of the rest of it. We know that you all want to do as much as you can, so we're happy to answer those questions. But if we can really, really bring it back to the basics, do the basics really, really well, those are the materials that have really strong markets. We know they're recyclable, they're very uniform, and they are going to be easy to understand. They don't require anyone to wrap their head around nuances that we all like to get into the minutia of. So if that is any message that you can bring back to any of your doubtful neighbors or your neighbors who aren't participating right, ask them to do one thing right. Ask them to recycle their cardboard boxes or ask them to recycle their aluminum cans. They've won and you've won. And when in doubt, throw it out.
Okay, I think everybody's learned a lot. If you still have questions, you can send them into SWANCC. Did we get to all the questions?
We did.
We have a few here, but I can always email you back
Okay, so,
responses.
For any questions that weren't answered, We will get
They
the
were
answers from
hungry.
SWANCC and we will post them on our website, which is what we did 3 years ago when we had a similar program. So if you don't currently get a copy of our monthly bulletin, please sign up at the back. And thank you all for coming tonight. I hope you found it informative. And thank you so much for wonderful speakers.
Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.